The Alexander Skarsgård twist in Amazon's television adaptation of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is nothing compared to the celebrated actor's other role in another acclaimed Donald Glover series. Co-created by Glover and Atlanta writer Francesca Sloan, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is one of the first must-see television series of 2024, earning an impressive 90% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes. Based on the premise of the original 2005 movie starring Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, the series features an outstanding ensemble cast that includes Paul Dano, Wagner Moura, and Parker Posey. Alexander Skarsgård has been one of the most successful actors of the 2020s thus far, having appeared in the acclaimed final season of Succession as well as starring in the celebrated Robert Eggers film The Northman in 2022. Skarsgård rose to prominence from his role as Sergeant Brad Iceman Colbert in the HBO limited series Generation Kill and has since starred in a number of celebrated projects including True Blood, Big Little Lies, and even as himself in an episode of the Emmy Award-winning series Atlanta. Alexander Skarsgård's Atlanta role was even wilder than his Mr. and Mrs. Smith cameo. Skarsgård appeared in Atlanta Season 3, Episode 10. Alexander Skarsgård in Atlanta. Alexander Skarsgård plays an exaggerated version of himself in Atlanta Season 3, Episode 10 titled Tar Rare. This episode was actually the season finale of what many consider to be the most off-kilter season of the series. Skarsgård has much more screen time and creative impact in Atlanta than he does in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, considering that his total screen time in the entire series was less than 4 minutes. Skarsgård's appearance on Atlanta is one of his most wild and fun guest appearances in a television show in which he throws himself at the role completely. Although Season 3 is not highly ranked on the list of best Atlanta seasons, the eccentric quality and unique tone of the season at large made it possible for Skarsgård to take on such an unhinged part. In the Atlanta episode, Skarsgård becomes the subject of a plot by Van's friend Candace to incriminate him with drug possession, who explains that it's all a part of their romantic relationship. It's one of the most off-the-rails scenarios that Skarsgård finds himself in on television, especially considering that he is playing himself in the series. Alexander Skarsgård's cameo set the tone perfectly for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Skarsgård brilliantly starts Mr. and Mrs. Smith alongside Isa Gonzalez. Skarsgård's appearance in the opening sequence of Mr. and Mrs. Smith implies that he will become one of the main players throughout the series along with his apparent partner Isa Gonzalez. Shockingly, both characters are killed in a matter of minutes, which is an incredibly captivating way to start the television show. While it would have been nice to experience more of Skarsgård in another innovative world created by Glover, his role in Mr. and Mrs. Smith completely subverts all expectations and sets the bar early for the other guest stars with the suggestion that anything can happen.